Good morning, guys. I wanted to get started with our colic PowerPoint that we're going to go over. The reason we're going over this is because you guys are going to be doing physical exams with the equine students on our horses. And we will be doing those physical exams that include colic parameters. So, colic is a serious disease problem in horses, and it's good to catch things early so that the veterinarian can make good decisions to get the horse feeling better as soon as possible. In case the horse has to go to surgery, they can make those decisions very quickly if you provide them with good information from those colic parameters. So I want to show you where this PowerPoint is. We are in Unit 2, Classification and Health. So that is up here. Let me shine on that. So sorry. All right, so we are in Unit 2, Classification and Health. We are now in Modular 5 right here. So if you click on that, and then the colic PowerPoint is right here. So I will put this recorded video right below that as well. We also have colic and horse weight video, and then your horse physical exam video is down here as well. So several videos for you to refer back to as you work with our horses and learn about colic and physical exams. All right, let's open up this PowerPoint and get started. All right, so what will we learn today? We'll learn a little bit more about the anatomy of the horse's digestive system, and you will continue to learn about the horse's digestive system as you move into the next semester where we do anatomy and physiology. Why do horses colic? That's one of the things we'll talk about. Signs of colic. What information will the vet need, and how to prevent some colics. So here is a picture of the horse's anatomy. So they are a single stomach animal. They do have one stomach. They have then it moves on to the small intestine. There are three parts of the small intestine: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. And then they have a rather large intestine. So they are called hindgut fermenters, and they do use their hindgut to break down a lot of the foliage that they eat, the fibrous material, the hay, the grass that they consume. They are constant grazers, so they do need to be constantly keeping that digestive system full and moving. That's what keeps the digestive system working well for them. So we have changed things for them by adding in grains and stuff as we use horses for dressage or jumping or showing or working cattle and stuff like that. So we've incorporated some concentrates into their diet, but we still need to maintain a lot of that hay and to keep their digestive system moving and working properly. So here is kind of the whole digestive system laid out for you. So the esophagus is about 4.5 feet long. That's pretty long for an esophagus. The stomach contains about 8 to 17 quarts of material. You have the small intestines, which is about 70 feet of small intestines. Then you have their cecum, and their cecum is about 4 feet in length. And that's where they really start to kind of break down that fibrous material. And then that continues on into the large colon or large intestine. So the large intestines are 29 feet long. So the large colon is about 10 to 12 feet. Then you have the small colon, again, 10 to 12 feet. And then the rectum and anus as it moves out of the horse's body. Horses do poop about 50 pounds a day. So if you don't clean your horse's stall for 2 days, that's 100 pounds that you'll be hauling out of feces. So a typical 1,000-pound horse will poop about 50 pounds a day. That is because their digestive system just constantly needs to be moving, and they are constant grazers. There are many reasons why a horse can colic. There is a gas colic, so gas can build up in parts of that 70 feet of small intestine or that 29 feet of large intestine, and then as the gas builds up, it distends the intestines, and that causes pain. I mean, if you've ever had gas pressure, which I know we all have, it's that distortion, that stretching of the intestines as the gas moves through the digestive system, and that causes pain. So colic is just abdominal pain. It's a word that means abdominal pain. So gas colic can also cause distension of the intestine, but it can also cause it to move throughout the horse's body. And so if it raises up and then maybe the horse lays down and rolls, that intestine can then twist, and then that cuts off blood flow to the intestine, and then parts of the intestine start to die. Then that can lead to surgery. So that is called torsion. It does lead to either death if blood supply is cut off to the intestine for a prolonged period of time, and surgery is not performed to resect or cut out that portion of dead intestine. It starts to release toxins into the animal's body, and the circulatory system is an awesome system for delivering, blood and oxygen and nutrients to different parts of the body. But when parts of the intestine die in an animal, the circulatory system also picks up those toxins that their body is releasing from that dead organ, and it does take it throughout the body as well. So it's a great system, except when it also delivers some bad stuff around the animal's body. All right, so that is kind of gas colic, torsion, and into some surgery for colic in horses. Overeating or overfeeding of grain. Accidents sometimes happen where a horse gets overfed. Most commonly, horses accidentally get out of their stalls or enclosures and then access some feed and eat too much. They don't know when to stop. And so that can cause problems as well, that can also lead to laminitis. Ulcers can cause colic. So maybe horses that are in training or working conditions, sometimes they develop ulcers in their stomach and to the start of the small intestine, the duodenum. That's very painful for them. The typical sign that an animal, a horse has ulcers, is they will grind their teeth, and you can hear it as soon as you walk into the barn. You can hear the horse grinding their teeth, and that typically is the sign that an animal might have ulcers. Grass colic or laminitis. Well, Sandy is one of those that has this. She did colic last year. She colicked slightly. We got her some Banamine. We walked her a bunch, and Dr. Clark came out and took a look at her, and she worked through that. But then she also developed laminitis after the clover came on late in the summer just before school started, and developed some laminitis. So laminitis is where the lamina of the feet is kind of like Velcro. and it becomes inflamed. Itis means inflammation of the lamina. So that lamina is like Velcro, and it becomes inflamed, and then it starts to separate. So that is not a good condition for horses. And if horses don't have good feet, well, you don't have a horse. So sand colic is typically found in horses like in Arizona, California, Florida area where there is, sand. And typically down there, they try to feed their horses off the ground in hay bins and stuff, so that the horses, as they're eating the hay, they don't pick up that sand. But you can get horses up here in Ohio that have sand and develop sand colic because they have been shipped from those areas and have some sand in their digestive system. It's kind of cool. I mean, cool to listen to. You can take the stethoscope and put it at the bottom of the barrel of the horse, kind of at the midline of their abdomen, and you can listen, and it kind of sounds like the ocean. You can hear that those sand particles moving as the digestive system and the peristalsis, that's the moving of stuff through the digestive system, occurs. It kind of sounds like the ocean. So intussusception, this I've seen mostly in foals or horses that have not been properly dewormed. Intussusception happens where excuse me, there is an injured part of the intestine, and sometimes that's caused by parasites on the inside of the intestine. And then the intestine starts to, as peristalsis happens, and that's the wave movement that passes food through the digestive system. As that happens, that injured part of the intestine works its way inside the other part of the intestine. So it's kind of like that 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 telescope type action from, what's that, Pirates of the Caribbean. You know how he has that long telescope thing, and so that's kind of how it's one part of the intestine works its way in to the other part, and then the part on the inside loses blood supply and then can die and then start to release toxins. So typically, intussusception ends up with surgery on the animal, and they have to resect that damaged part of the intestine. So cut it out and then sew the two healthy parts back together. Impaction can be seen quite a bit. This sometimes happens in the hot summer or in the cold winter. It has to do with a lack of water available to the horse. It is important that horses have access to water at all times. So sometimes horse water tanks get overlooked in the hot summer. You wouldn't think that they would dry up as quickly as they do, but between the weather and the evaporation and then horses drinking more, sometimes those horse tanks do dry up, and then you do not have, the horses do not have access to water. Same thing kind of happens in the wintertime where those water tanks freeze over. Say maybe your water heater for that water trough isn't working, or it quits working and you don't realize it, then horses do not have access to that water. Some horses don't like cold water. Some horses don't like hot water. So you do have those pickier types of horses. You do need to keep a good eye on them during the hot months and the cold months to make sure that they are drinking a sufficient amount of water. I typically don't like automatic waterers in stalls and in barns, because then I can't monitor how much water that horse is consuming. So I do like filling up the bucket, hauling it out to the stall, cleaning it out every day, but that way I can keep track of how much water that horse is taking in, so I can make sure that impaction is not a thing for them. Impaction can also occur if an animal eats something it shouldn't. So the baling twine that we have on our bales of hay, we absolutely have to make sure that those get taken out and that those aren't consumed by the horse. Sometimes you have some horses that get bored in a stall and they start nibbling on things. I have seen through my years of working at Ohio State, I have seen lead ropes come out of horses. Those tail wraps come out of horses. Those are the most common things that they tend to nibble on and then ingest, and then they get stuck in their digestive system. And then the food, because they are constant grazers, just start packing it on the digestive system. And then parasites. Internal parasites can absolutely cause colic and cause problems for the horses. So it's very important that you rotate your dewormers and stay on track of that. I am guilty of not keeping on track with that. Mr. Squirrel does a great job of keeping me on track of deworming our two horses along with the ones at the farm. So good job, Mr. Squirrel. Signs of colic, they tend to look at their side. So whether they're laying down, they'll kind of turn and look at their side. They may roll. They may also kick at their belly. And then in the lower right-hand corner, there's a horse that is parking out, is the term, where they're just kind of stretching out to get some abdominal relief. So just kind of think about when you're not feeling well and your abdomen is hurting, your stomach is hurting, things you do, you kind of lay down, you may roll this way, roll that way, sit up, lay back down. Those are typical things that a horse does. Is it okay for a horse to lay down? Absolutely. Is it okay for a horse to roll? Absolutely. But I always watch those horses and make sure they get up and kind of shake off and then go about their business. So I just kind of keeping an eye on our horses, knowing what is normal will absolutely help you know what is abnormal, and you should really know what your horse's normal behavior is so that you can quickly identify when your horse is not feeling well. What information will the vet need and how to get it? So that is why we are doing the colic parameters and the physical exam. For one, so we know what the normal is for that horse. And for two, to show you how to get those colic parameters so you can get the information to the vet as soon as possible. And so they have as much information so they can make the best decisions for that horse to get that horse feeling better as soon as possible. So some of the things we're going to look at is the mucous membrane color. That is the color of the horse's gums. And you can also see around the eyes as well. They have a mucous membrane there, but we typically look at the horse's gum color. It should be a nice pink color. Every horse has a different pink that is normal for them. So it's important for you to know that. A red, bright red, or a purplish color is not good. That could mean that there are toxins in the bloodstream circulating throughout the bloodstream, and that horse is in trouble and needs some help quickly. CRT stands for capillary refill time. So what we do with the horses is we push on the gums next to the teeth, kind of turn the gums white, and then we let off, and we count how long it takes for the gums to turn back pink. It should be less than 2 seconds is normal for that horse. You can do this on yourself as well, as long as you don't have fingernail polish on. You push on your fingernail here, let it go white, and then you let off, and within 2 seconds it should turn back to pink. And that is your capillary refill time. Lets you know that you're well hydrated, that your circulatory system is working well. TPR stands for temperature, pulse, and respiration. So typically, horses have a temperature right around 99, 100 to 101. So that is kind of the range. Everybody has their normal, their normal range. So as you guys, I'm sure, have found out while taking your temperature every morning before you go to school, I take mine. I stay in the 97 degree Fahrenheit range. 97.1, 97.5, 97.7. So that's my normal. But the normal temperature for a human is 98.6. So horses have the same type of thing. So anything over 101.5, I would say, would be a fever and something to be concerned about. The pulse for a horse, generally in the 20s to 40s, depending on the age, depending on the horse. And then the respiration range in your 12 to 20 range. And we're talking breaths per minute and we're talking beats per minute. So you do want to make sure when you are taking these that you count the pulse for 15 seconds and then multiply by 4. And that is the number you're using to talk to people. We talk in beats per minute and we talk in breaths per minute. So same with the respiratory system. You want to talk in breaths per minute. So I typically look at the barrel of the horse, kind of between the barrel and the ground, and I watch the horse's chest and barrel rise and fall, and I count that for 15 seconds, and then you multiply that by 4, and that will give you your breaths per minute. Digital pulses are important to feel for. That lets us know if the horse is headed towards laminitis or foundering. Typically, I don't usually feel the digital pulse in most horses on a normal basis. So if you can feel the digital pulse, that shows that something may be wrong. Sandy, for most of the time, you cannot feel her digital pulse, but when she did get that laminitis, you could definitely feel the digital pulse in her front feet. You want to also check the hooves for heat as well. So again, in her front feet, they did feel a bit warmer. I believe her left side was warmer than her right, if I remember correctly. Gut sounds, we'll listen with a stethoscope to gut sounds. You want to listen for a good 2 minutes in each of the quadrants. So on the right side, you have an upper and a lower quadrant. And then on the left side, you have an upper and a lower quadrant. You do want to make sure you let the horse know where you are. That lower quadrant in the flank area could be the kicking zone, kind of their ticklish zone area. So you do want to make sure that you stand by the horse's shoulder and that you reach back and you listen for those gut sounds. Gut sounds can sound like an old door opening, or it can sound like an old truck starting up, or you can hear these bubbles. So those are what gut sounds sound like. Typically, you should be hearing them. You want to listen for about 2 minutes in each quadrant, and you should be hearing them every through couple, every 15 seconds or so, you should hear some. If you're constantly hearing them, that might mean that the horse is about to break with diarrhea. So a lot of gut sounds could mean that a horse is going to break with diarrhea. No gut sounds means that digestive system is not working. It's not moving the way it should be. It's not passing food through the digestive system. So it's important to know where you hear gut sounds and where you don't, and are there a bunch of them or none at all. All right. It's also important to know the amount of water a horse drinks. I like to keep track of that on a daily basis. Feces, you need to keep track of how much your horse is pooping and passing, and whether it looks normal. So looking at feces is a thing. You need to kind of keep track of that horse. Is it consuming a lot of grass? Is it are the feces hard and don't have enough moisture in them? That might indicate that that horse needs more water. So it's important to see how much the horse is passing and what the feces looks like. Is it normal for that horse or is it abnormal? And then the amount of hay or grain an animal is eating. So if a horse typically, as soon as you put the grain in there, goes straight for the grain, and then one day decides that it's not eating the grain, that could be an indication that something is wrong. All right, so get to know your horse from the inside out. So we do listen to the heart right behind right on the chest, kind of behind the elbow area there. On the left-hand side is where you want to place the stethoscope. You want to just put it there with 2 fingers. You don't want to be moving your fingers around a bunch because that kind of interferes with you hearing the horse's heart. You are listening for the lub dub, lub dub, lub dub. So lub dub 1, lub dub 2, lub dub 3, lub dub 4. So you count that for 15 seconds, multiply by 4, and that gets you your beats per minute. Where the X's are on this horse are the gut sounds, or areas where you listen for the gut sounds. So there's the upper quadrant and lower quadrant, and you would do the same on the other side. All right. So what can we do to prevent colic? It's important to feed good quality hay. Please make sure that your hay is not moldy. Always look at your hay before feeding it to your horse. Smell it to make sure that it isn't moldy, and that you are purchasing good quality hay. It is not cheap to own a horse or have a horse. It does require that you provide good quality hay for your horses. They are constant grazers, so you need to have a nice consistent feeding schedule, and you need to make sure that your horse has access to both hay and a pasture. Make sure that your horse has access to plenty of water in the summer and winter months. Know your horse, know their eating habits, know what their feces looks like, how much they tend to poop in a day, know their temperament, know their mucous membrane colors, their typical TPR, temperature, pulse, and respirations. So they're normal, what their normal is. That way, if they are abnormal, you can recognize it very quickly and then get the information to the veterinarian so they can make the best possible decisions to get your horse feeling better. Deworm your horse regularly and rotate those dewormers. So mark it on the calendar, put it in your phone, whatever you need to do to make sure that you keep track of that and you're doing the best preventative measures to avoid those parasites that can injure your horse's digestive system. All right, so that is it. Good luck when you do your physicals on the horses and take those colic parameters. Please be safe. Watch your feet. Make sure you're stepping in the proper areas, and let the horse know where you're at all times. Listen to your horse handler. Make sure you guys are staying on the same side of the horse. So if you move to one side of the horse, so does the horse handler. You want to be working on the same side as your horse handler is. So, all right. If you have any questions, you know where to find us. So thanks, guys.